Hello and welcome guys, my name is Leon Street here from businessownerelevation.com, and I've got a special piece of training that I want to run you through. In particular, I'm going to read it out, but I know you guys will be able to see, and it is 6 simple steps to create a high-end online course from scratch. So today, basically, if you're a coach, a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, business owner with some knowledge, some ideas up there, and you want to put together this knowledge into a course, and in particular, as we mentioned, a high-end course that you want people to come and buy from you, well, this is the training that you're looking for. So make sure, because I'm just in between going through the whiteboard behind me, but I just want to make sure, guys, if you're watching this, check out the blog as well, because we've got a few extra resources on the page on businessownerelevation.com where you'll be able to get access to this in the actual blog content. So let's get started. So what I want to do is, first of all, kick off our 6 simple steps. And so step 1 is who. And so when we're talking about who, first of all, we need to understand who is the target market, who are we going to serve. And the first thing is that when you're starting out in business, whether you've got customers or whether you don't, you're literally a startup, this can be a difficult thing. And sometimes even with an established business, maybe you've not got enough customers, or you've not got enough customers who would engage with you to let you know whether or not it's something that they're interested in. Now, the thing is, the best place to start, if you don't know the answers to any of that, is, well, who do you want as your perfect customer? So what we did when we started out our business, we looked at who could we support. We looked at, in particular, the types of roles. So we looked at, was it a business owner? Was it a coach? Was it a speaker? Was it, somebody who'd gone through training or actually delivered training? And so that's where we started to look at. So what I would say here is, first of all, identify who your perfect customer would be. Even if you don't have a customer, you're just thinking about who could that be. So step 1 is perfect customer. So I'll just put in here, perfect customer. So that's going to help you to identify who, and the best thing to do is put down maybe the job role or the position. So I'll put here business owner, and I'd put in here coach, trainer. So hopefully you guys can see my absolutely amazing writing. But anyway, so focus on who is your perfect customer as the first step to understanding who is the person you want to market your course to. And remember, this is a high-end online course, and I'm going to get into what high-end actually means as we progress into this. So the second step is problems and needs. Now, your course must fix the problems and needs of your target audience. And so you're probably going to have customers who, you come across, and the best ones are the ones that you actually survey. And the best thing to identify problems and needs is to do something called the deep dive survey. And a deep dive survey starts with a series of questions that ask them, particularly your audience, about the key things you want to find out about them in order to build and create your online course. So here's the best question to start with. Ask your customers in your survey what is their number 1 single biggest challenge when it comes to, and the 2 part is whatever your level or field of expertise is. So I'll just write in here, survey. And if you don't have customers and you're thinking, well, who do I get to fill it in? Maybe you create a survey and you could put it together and market it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or even Google if you wanted to go to that extent. But I'd probably say get your survey out there, and one of the best places is probably Facebook or maybe LinkedIn. And so try that. And so with this, remember what I said, I'll put it under here. You're going to do a deep dive survey and ask your customer their number 1 challenge. And so along with that, when you ask them the number 1 challenge, what we find very useful is ask them about their goals, find out what it is that they want to achieve, because that will help you to set up more specifically about what needs they have, as well as the problems they're facing. Ask them maybe about some income. So, what is their current probably sales revenue. What's their targeted sales revenue, maybe this year and then the following year, so into the future, get them to future project. Maybe you want to find out some demographics, so what gender are they? Maybe you want to find out their age. Maybe you want to find out if they have children, what types of relationships they're in, depending on your niche and obviously what your business does and how you'll serve your customers. So these are important things. So once you've got some answers back and you've found out obviously what the problems and needs are of your potential customers or your perfect customers that you want to target, you can then start to map out what solutions can you provide. So at this point, I'll put in here. So solutions are, let me give you an example actually before I get into that. So when we started mapping out our own program, we looked at what skills do we have in the business. And so the first thing is skills. And so when we were starting at Business Owner Elevation, we put together our program, the Vortex program, we looked at what skills do we have as a team. So we have online marketing, we have sales, direct response marketing, we have email marketing. So many things that can go into that. And these areas are kind of top level that we can then deep dive into in more specific areas when we want to help our customers. So here, put down what skills you have to offer these people who've answered your survey. So let's go into specifics. I'll put online marketing, and then I'll put sales as an example. So list your skills down, and then what you can then start to do is map these solutions, i.e. your skills, what you can do to the problems and needs that needed to be served here in step 2. Now, once you've mapped them together, what you can start to do is look at step 4. Step 4 is all about structure. So how do you put your course together? You're probably thinking, well, this is a common question that we get asked quite a lot. And it's kind of like, well, where do you start? What do you do? What do you introduce? Well, the best way for me to explain to you guys is think about a book. So when you pick a book up, it starts with the title, i.e. your course name. And then when you go to the chapter page, you'll see that there are different chapters. And the chapters are almost like the sections that you would have in your online course. And so the best way to start is think of what's your introduction to your course, your introduction module. Then you'll probably have the conclusion, i.e. the final module. And then in between that, you'll have what you've mentioned here, your skills, which are solving these problems. So you're probably going to define, whether it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 key areas, i.e. the body, the main parts of what you're going to deliver on your course as the structure. So here it starts with intro, start with your outro, and then fill the middle with the key steps of how you help people to solve their problems and needs. And so let me just break this down. So here I'll put chapters. So it's just like a book. And let's get the black pen so you can have intro and an outro. And so on our program, we have a quick start module that helps people to get started really quickly. And then at the end, we have something called Ignite, where we help people to move to the next stage once they've got to the end of the program. And then in there, break it down into different modules that you can have. And as an example, you would have your course. So imagine this is your course here. And then off the back of your course, you'll probably have your intro. Then you'll have Module 1, Module 2, and Module 3. So however many, I would say, weeks or modules you want to include. And then you could go down into, I'll just put outro and I'll squeeze that one on in there. So the key thing here with what you're doing with the structure is thinking about your product. So this is your product here. And then you'll have the first module, which will be your introduction module. And you don't have to call it intro. That's just the quickest way for me to explain. You could call it whatever you want. We have ours as the fast start checklist. That's our first module. And then from there, we break things down into, as the first example, I would call it one of our modules called Pillars of Positioning. So that's one of our first one where we teach people about positioning themselves. Then we have another one called the Big Hook, where we teach people about writing big hooks in their headlines, in their titles, in their marketing, so people really understand. So with this, just use the language that would best serve you in what you're going to put together in your online course. The key thing here is to break it down into a structure that you can use, and this goes really well into step 5. And let me explain that when you put an online course together, you may have an online course where people just self-study, so they can study the whole things themselves and go through it all, which is great. So what you probably want to do is start to structure it into anything from, I would say, 4 to 8 modules. If you have more, there's no harm in that. That's perfectly fine. It all depends on how much content you're going to put into your high-end course. But if you're doing it based on a time frame where somebody comes onto your course, maybe you have a 4-week or an 8-week or even a 12-week program where people study based on you leading them each week, you may want to map your course, the modules, based on the time frame that you create your course and deliver it in. So for instance, if you had a 4-week course, you'd probably want to have 4 modules. So each week they'd get a module, you'd be able to lead them basically on live calls, which we'll get into in a moment. Or maybe you want to do something a bit longer, like 8 weeks, where you have 8 weeks worth of programs. You have an intro, maybe you'd have modules 2 to 7 of core content, and then your final one, your outro module, as the final step in what people would do in an 8-week program. So it's entirely up to you, but the best thing to do is decide on a time frame. So if it is a program where you're going to lead people, maybe you do like a group call on some kind of webinar software, something like Zoom, something like maybe Webinar Jam, which we'll get into in a moment. You can do that using a time frame method approach. So map it out against the time frame. And so let me just fill this part in here. I would say anything from 4 to 10 weeks. I mean, you can go up to 12 even, which is basically like a 3-month program. So that's entirely up to you to choose, but you have it here, the modules, map that against the time that you're going to deliver your program in. So the final step in 6 simple steps to create a high-end online course from scratch is to break it down. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's say you put your course together and you've put these amazing modules together, you've put some videos and you've got some PDFs. Well, you need to break this down so it becomes easily digestible by the people who are taking the course. What do I mean by that? Well, simply put, if you have a number of modules, let's go with the example we've got here. We've got 5. Yep. You have a number of videos. Let's say you put in 5 hours worth of videos and they're an hour each. Can you imagine somebody having to sit and watch 5 hours worth of content? That would appear and seem to many people, including me, like, frig me, that's a lot of time. So what you want to do is break them down into chunks. So our recommendation is that you use videos but chop them up into a maximum of 20 minutes each. So you may have a 5-minute video, but the maximum length of any video in one of your modules would be 20 minutes. So let's say you did have 5 hours worth of video, but actually what you'd end up with is, instead of 5 1-hour videos, you would chop them all up into segments of 20 minutes. Yeah, just as an example. What I do advise though, if you are running a program like this, is probably when you're first starting out, keep your modules, each one of these, to a total time frame of probably 1 hour. So that would mean in module 1, you could end up with, as an example, 6 videos of 10 minutes each, or 3 videos of 20 minutes each. Does that make sense? Hope so. So break it down, guys. That's the key thing here. So chunk it down to make it easily digestible. So I'm going to put chunks. That's the key thing here, guys. So final part. So anything from 5 to 20 minutes. So that's what you want for videos. If you're using audio in your program, do the same thing. You don't want it too long. For an audio program where your modules are delivered by audio, so MP3, and people listen back to what you've got, again, keep it to like 20, maybe 30 minutes with audio. It's not as, I suppose, intensive, because somebody can just listen to it on the go if that's how your program is being delivered. But equally, 5 to 20 minutes is perfect. If you're using PDFs, then again, there's no real time limit on a PDF. It's all about just making sure that the content is visually appealing and people can go through the content as easily as possible to help them through. So there's our 6 simple steps to creating a high-end online course from scratch. But you're probably asking the obvious question, And this is the question, if I was on the other side of the camera, that I'd be asking, what does Leon mean by a high end? Well, it's nothing to do with height, guys, it's to do with money. So if you're creating a high end course, we're talking, so high end, anything that is £1,000 or more. So that was meant to be a plus. Let's see if I can make that a bit better. There we go. So £1,000 or more, guys. So imagine wrapping all of your knowledge into a program that people pay you £1,000 or more for. Yeah. So we have programs that start at £1,000. We have them that go upwards 4,000, right through to 5 figures. Now, what's the cool thing about this, guys? Well, this is the important part for you. I've just taken you through how to create the course, the 6 simple steps. But imagine, guys, if you were able to sell 10 of these a month, that takes you to £10,000 a month. 5 figures. Now, I know for a lot of business owners, especially ones that we've surveyed, as I've told you guys to do, most people only actually want to generate 4 to 5 grand a month. So imagine that, guys, you have a course and your sole goal is to get 4 to 5 customers a month. Do you know what that means? You only need approximately 60 customers a year. Is that something that you could do? Absolutely. Well, if you've got bigger goals, bigger aspirations, well, let's think even better than that. Let's say your course is £5,000, and there are some courses out there that go way beyond that, and it's all to do with the level of expertise and the impact that you have in solving the problems and needs of the customers in your niche. Now, this is massively important. So high end, anything from £1,000 or more. And typically what we do with our students on our coaching programs is teach them how to sell anything from £1,000, £2,000 for an 8 to 12 week program. So this is what we break down for our students and the people who go through the teachings of what we have. So there you have it, guys, high-end course. But you're thinking, what's Leon got hidden over here? I'm sure you've noticed this. Bonuses with the smiley face. Exactly. So what I want to point out, guys, is make sure you read through the blog that accompanies and matches and pairs with this particular video, because we break down some of the steps into more details, and I'm about to reveal. So bonus number 1, let's see if our blue tack can come off. Membership site. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're going to deliver a course, you need a platform. So you need to know what software to use. And in particular, there are 2 that we recommend. There are many on the market, but there's 2 we recommend because we've used both and they work amazingly well, successfully well. So the first one that you want to look into is using WordPress with, and if I can fit it on, Optimize Press. So that is step 1. So membership software, if you do have a website, you're more than likely to be using WordPress. If you're not, then you can find out more about it and check out the blog because we've got links specifically giving you more information about it. The second one is ClickFunnels. There we are. So these are the 2 pieces of software that you can use for your online course platform. So these are the ones we recommend, and we do recommend that you self-host it and don't just go down the route of looking at places like lynda.com or Udemy, because when it's your own platform, you have control on your pricing and how the content's delivered, and that's what you want. You want the power, guys, especially when you're dealing with high-end. So as we mentioned, here is high-end. So bonus number 2. Communication. So one of the key things in delivering a successful high-end course is communicating with your students, the people that buy the course and study on your course. And one of the best ways that we use to communicate with anybody who buys our courses is that when they buy, we ask them to join a private Facebook group. And the whole point of that is, in a Facebook group, you can tag people personally, but also the other community members in that group act as a community that support one another. And so let me just make a note here, Facebook group. So use a Facebook group to communicate with your course attendees. So bonus number 3. So this one is all about weekly accountability. If you have a program where I said you're leading the people who are on the program each week, and so you do live calls with them on some kind of live call software, things like Zoom or maybe Webinar Jam, offer a weekly accountability call. And the whole point of this is you do a weekly call, maybe it's to one-to-one or maybe it's to group if you have a group program. If you do one-to-ones, then as I mentioned, use something like Zoom or Webinar Jam. And guys, remember the links are on the blog page if you want to get to any of these pieces of software to check them out. So you can either do one-to-ones if you're doing one-to-ones as coaching or one-to-one support calls as part of your group program, or do groups. And generally what we find is if you're doing a group program, it could be anything from 5 to 15 people per group. And we find that this is pretty much a manageable chunk, a manageable size that you can work with successfully, especially when you're first starting out or get into grips with doing a program. So finally guys, that leaves us with bonus number 4. So here we are. One of the key things when it comes to your group program is whether or not you offer support as part of a group program, as I mentioned, or whether you do a group program. But here's the thing, if people do need support, you need to maintain a level of what I would call a kind of professional barrier between you and the attendees. And what I mean by that is you need to become less accessible, because if people buy your program and let's say they use Facebook and you're on Facebook Messenger and they're messaging you, 24 hours a day, you're not really going to get much sleep and it's going to become very annoying. So what you do is set the rules of the game, and then anybody who wishes to speak to you, you make sure they book into your calendar. And we use something called, and I've put the first part here, Acuity, and then it's schedule. Yeah, there are other pieces of software on the market like Schedule Once, but the cool thing about this is that you can get people to book into your calendar, so you only do support calls when you make available in your calendar. And this is really powerful, because what you don't want to do is really go into an area where you're trading too much of your time for the money that they've invested. So set the rules of the game. I'll add that here to rules of the game. So guys, finally, I'm just going to just remind you once again, the 6 simple steps to create a high-end online course from scratch. Step 1 is look at who, so find your perfect customer. Step 2 is problems and needs, so make sure you use a survey. We have step 3, solutions, so look at what skills you have to help people. Step 4 is structure, so look at the chapters, how you break your course down. Step 5 is time frame. Will you deliver it over 4, 8 or 12 weeks? And step 6, break it down, make it manageable, especially if you're doing video, 5 to 20 minute chunks. And then here are the bonuses, guys. As part of the bonuses, we have got software listed, the specific ones that we use and recommend, and get those, access to them, the links on the blog page. So membership software, WordPress, OptimizePress and ClickFunnels. Communication, so make sure you're communicating with your groups using something like Facebook group. Then the third one, weekly accountability, so make sure that the live calls are there so that your attendees, people on your course, can ask you Q&A. So any questions they have, make sure that they're able to ask you so you can solve them as they're going through your program. And finally, offer some sort of calendar booking software so people book into your diary, into your availability, so they understand the rules of the game, so that you're not always accessible and that you do have a life. So there you have it, guys. So that's Leon Street from Business Owner Elevation. I hope this has been a great insight into how you can create your own online course, and I look forward to hearing about the successes of what you're doing. If you have any comments, feedback, if you use these pieces of software or other ones, or you do things slightly differently, I'd really love to find out. So drop a comment below this blog, and I'll catch you soon, guys. Take care.